Now we are going to discuss about another type of classification, that is permanent parasite and temporary parasite. So permanent parasite, the parasite which spend their whole life on or within the host, are called permanent parasite. For example, Melophagus ovinus, this is a permanent parasite. Temporary parasite which feed on the host and they live, and thus parasites are not restricted to the single host and do not stay permanently, but they take their meal from the host and survive. They are the temporary parasites. An example of these are, for example, blood sucking flies. They are temporary parasites. And this temporary parasite have other synonyms like intermittent parasite or periodic parasite or sporadic parasite. So temporary parasite, periodic parasite, sporadic parasite and intermittent parasite are same, are the synonym to each other. Then there comes another classification, that is ectoparasite and endoparasite. Ectoparasite that lives outside the body are called ectoparasite. Okay, for example, lives or on the body of the host, particularly on the skin. For example, tick, mice, flea, as you have noted in case of cattle, buffalo, there are ticks, they are attached in the different parts of the body. Okay, lice, flea. Okay, endoparasite which lives inside the body. For example, the parasite which live inside the intestine, inside the lung, inside the liver, those are the endoparasite. Based on the requirement of the host for living their life for living the life of the parasites, there are also another classification. And what are those? First one is monogenous parasite, monoxenous, monogenous parasites. The parasite is monogenous when it does not require any intermediate host or vector for completion of their life cycle, does not require any intermediate host. For example, Imeria species. Then there comes heterogeneous parasite, heteroxenous, heterogeneous parasite. From the name itself, again clear, the parasite is heterogeneous when it requires any intermediate host for completion of the life cycle. For example, Trypanosoma evansi or Trypanosoma rhodesiensis. Okay. Then there comes stenogenous parasite. The stenogenous parasites are those in which they have narrow host range, means only few hosts they may require, and there is autoheterogeneous parasites. Okay, some vertebrate animal act as both definitive and intermediate host of this parasite. They are called autoheterogeneous parasite. And the example of autoheterogeneous parasite is Trichinella spiralis. Okay, and there is another important term, that is the zoonotic parasite. Zoonotic disease, you know, the disease which is can be intertransmittable between animal to human or human to animal. And so zoonotic parasite is also the same. Parasites are transmissible from man to animal or vice versa, are called zoonotic parasite. For example, Tinea solium, Tinea saginata, these are zoonotic parasites. Parasites can be unicellular or parasites can be multicellular. Unicellular parasites, all the protozoa, and for example Trypanosoma species is unicellular. Multicellular, all other parasites, as you know, Fasciola, Ascaris, Toxocara, all these are multicellular parasite. We also name the parasites depending upon where it resides. For example, if there is a term called histozoic parasite, means the parasite which live in the tissue, it is called histozoic parasite. For example, Sarcocyst species. There is one term, coelozoic parasite, Coelozoic parasite. The parasite which live in the lumen of the GI tract or other hollow part of an organ is called coelozoic parasite. Then in another classification, depending upon their sexuality, the parasites can be unisexual, bisexual or parthenogenetic. Unisexual parasite, the parasite which has either male or female reproductive system, is called unicellular parasite, and the male and female parasites are different. For example, Ascaris, hookworm, all these are unisexual parasites. Bisexual parasites, the parasite which have both male and female reproductive system, are called bisexual parasite. For example, cystodes, all the cystodes. And it is also called hermaphrodite parasite. The bisexual parasite is also called hermaphrodite parasite. And then there is come parthenogenetic parasite. The parasite produce offspring from the unfertilized egg are called parthenogenetic parasite. So now we are going to discuss about the host. होस्ट मतलब जिसमें पैरासाइट रहता है, which parasitize the partner, the animal or organism which is being parasitized is called host, जिसके ऊपर वो parasite dependent रहता है. So the host can be also of different types, and we will discuss the types of the host. And there comes the first classification of the host, that is the definitive host. It is very important. Definitive host. A definitive host is a host where the parasite attain their sexual maturity. It is very much important. Definitive host is a host where the parasite attain its sexual maturity. It's called definitive host. For an example, Cystosarcus of Tinea solium get sexual maturity in human being, and therefore human being is the definitive host for Tinea solium. Another example is Cystosarcoid of Monagia species gets its sexual maturity in sheep and goat. Therefore, sheep and goat are the definitive host of these parasites. And there comes the another type, that is the intermediate host. The hosts are called intermediate host, in which the part of a biological development of the parasite occurs but sexual maturity does not occur. Means उसके उस शरीर में उस within this animal or human obviously एक part of that life of the parasite will definitely occur but not the sexual maturity. In most of the parasite the intermediate hosts are required for the completion of the life cycle. Intermediate host को भी जरूरत पड़ता है पूरा life cycle को complete करने के लिए. Okay, and they are also important as the definitive host. ऐसा नहीं है कि sexual maturity नहीं होता है in that host, so इसका मतलब वो important नहीं है. They are also important as the definitive host. And for example, multiplication of the flukes, as we have said that liver fluke, that for example fasciola gigantica and all these things, they occurred in the snail. A single miracidium starts multiplication which led to produce a number of cercaria eventually, and these events occurred in a snail host in case of fasciola and other trematode infection. So from these examples, it is easy to understand that intermediate host is equal importance for multiplication, nutrition and reproduction. They are also important. However, all the parasites do not require intermediate host for the development. On other hand, some parasites require even two intermediate hosts for completion of the life cycle. जैसे मैंने हम लोगों ने बताया कि fasciola और ये सब के लिए other trematode infection के लिए snail act as an intermediate host, and so some developmental phases also occurs on that host but not the sexual maturity. And what are the different examples? As I have already stated